Millionaire kicks out his pregnant wife. 6 years later, he sees her begging on the street with triplets who look exactly like him. Before we begin, let us know in the comments where you're tuning in from. Enjoy the journey. Ryan Harrison adjusted his Armani tie as he gazed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Le Ciel, Manhattan's most exclusive restaurant. The city lights twinkled below like stars, each representing lives with purpose while he sat alone at a table meant for two. "Will there be anything else, Mr. Harrison?" the waiter asked, hovering respectfully. "Just the check," Ryan replied without looking up. At 33, he had built Harrison Global Ventures into a financial empire spanning 3 continents. His net worth exceeded $4 billion. By all measurable standards, Ryan Harrison had achieved extraordinary success. Yet as he sipped his 30-year-old scotch, the familiar emptiness spread through his chest. The same hollow void that greeted him each morning in his penthouse and followed him to his corner office with its imposing mahogany desk. His phone buzzed with a message from Victor, his uncle and chairman of the board. "Singapore deal locked. 9 figures. Celebrate, nephew." Ryan didn't reply. Another deal, another million. The numbers had lost their meaning years ago. His mind drifted to Amanda, her smile, the way she challenged him, how she made him feel alive. 6 years since he'd driven her away, and still the wound felt fresh. "We want different things, Ryan," she had said that final day. "You want an empire. I want a life." He had let her walk away when she revealed her pregnancy, convinced his vision for Harrison Global was worth any sacrifice. Now, surrounded by everything money could buy, he wondered if it had been the greatest mistake of his life. A commotion outside caught his attention. On the street below, a small gathering had formed. From his elevated position, Ryan could see a woman with a cardboard sign, her shoulders hunched against the cold autumn wind. Curiosity drew him closer to the window. The woman turned slightly, and something about her seemed hauntingly familiar. She approached a nearby alley and embraced 3 small boys who emerged from the shadows, identical triplets, no more than 5 years old. Ryan felt the blood drain from his face. Even from this distance, he could see their bright green eyes and distinctive blonde hair, Harrison traits passed down for generations. 3 perfect miniature versions of himself. The crystal tumbler slipped from Ryan's hand, shattering on the polished floor. He barely noticed the commotion as waiters rushed to clean up. His eyes remained fixed on the street below, on Amanda and the 3 boys. His sons. The sons he never knew existed. Ryan abandoned his half-eaten dinner, leaving a $100 bill on the table as he rushed toward the elevator. His heart hammered against his ribs. The image of those 3 identical faces burned into his mind. "Sir, your coat," a waiter called after him, but Ryan was already gone. The descent from the 58th floor felt eternal. Ryan loosened his tie, struggling to breathe as questions flooded his mind. How could Amanda have hidden this from him? 3 children, his children, living on the streets while he accumulated billions. When the elevator doors finally opened, Ryan sprinted through the lobby and out into the crisp October evening. He scanned the street frantically, terrified they might have disappeared. Then he spotted them half a block away. Amanda kneeling beside one of the boys, adjusting his worn jacket. "Amanda!" Ryan called, his voice breaking. She froze, her body tensing visibly before slowly turning to face him. When their eyes met, shock and fear crossed her face. "Ryan," she whispered, instinctively drawing the boys closer to her. Up close, the resemblance was undeniable. 3 perfect miniature versions of himself looked up at him with curious green eyes. "They're mine," he said. It wasn't a question. Chapter 2. Reluctant reunion. "We should go," Amanda whispered urgently to the boys, her eyes never leaving Ryan's face. The years had been unkind to her, dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, clothes worn but clean. "Please wait," Ryan said, finding his voice. "Just give me a minute." The tallest boy stepped slightly forward, his small chin raised in a protective gesture Ryan recognized from his own childhood. "Are you okay, Mom?" he asked, eyes never leaving Ryan. "Yes, Dylan," Amanda replied softly. "This is an old friend." Ryan couldn't tear his gaze away from the children. "How old are they?" he demanded, though he already knew the answer. "5, she answered, barely audible. 5 years. The math wasn't difficult. Amanda must have been pregnant when he'd dismissed her from his life, when he'd said a baby would complicate things during the company's crucial expansion phase. "Why didn't you tell me?" His voice cracked with emotion. Amanda glanced at the boys who were watching this exchange with confusion. "Not here, Ryan." "I'm hungry," the smallest of the triplets said, tugging at Amanda's coat. The simple statement hit Ryan like a physical blow. His sons were hungry while he dined on Wagyu beef and expensive scotch. "Come with me," he said. "All of you. Please." Amanda hesitated, uncertainty written across her features. Ryan saw pride warring with practicality in her eyes. "Just dinner," he added softly. "Then we'll talk." After what felt like an eternity, Amanda nodded. "Okay," she said, gathering the boys closer. "Just dinner." As Ryan hailed a taxi, one of the boys, not Dylan, but another with a curious glint in his eye, looked up at him. "You look like us," the boy said simply. Ryan's throat tightened as he met the child's gaze. "Yes," he managed to reply. "I suppose I do." Ryan guided them to a small family restaurant nearby, instinctively starting toward his usual high-end establishments before catching Amanda's warning glance and redirecting somewhere more appropriate. Seated in a corner booth with worn vinyl seats, Ryan could barely focus on the menu in his hands. The 3 boys, Dylan, Mason, and Ethan, sat across from him, devouring plates of spaghetti with the enthusiasm only hungry children could muster. "They're good eaters," Ryan said awkwardly, searching for anything to break the tension. Amanda's lips twitched into a small smile despite herself. "They're growing boys." Dylan, the protective one, kept watching Ryan suspiciously while methodically twirling pasta around his fork. Mason, whom Ryan was learning was the creative one, studied Ryan's expensive watch with obvious curiosity. Ethan, the thoughtful observer, hadn't taken his eyes off Ryan's face since they sat down. "Why do you look like us?" Ethan finally asked, his small voice cutting through the silence. "Ethan," Amanda admonished gently, "remember what we talked about asking personal questions?" Ryan leaned forward slightly. "It's okay," he said. "Sometimes people look alike by coincidence." The lie tasted bitter on his tongue, but Amanda's grateful glance told him it was the right move for now. "Boys," Amanda suddenly said, "would you like ice cream for dessert?" The question successfully diverted the children's attention. When the waitress left with their enthusiastic orders, Amanda turned to Ryan. 5 minutes, she whispered. "I'll take them to see the fish tank by the entrance. That should give us time to talk." As the boys pressed their small hands against the aquarium glass, pointing excitedly at colorful fish, Amanda slipped back into the booth, her expression guarded. "Ask what you need to ask," she said quietly. "When did you find out you were pregnant?" Ryan began, his voice low. 3 weeks after you told me to leave." "And you didn't think I deserved to know?" Amanda's eyes flashed. "I called your office, Ryan. 3 times. Your assistant said you were too busy to take personal calls. After the 3rd time, I decided our children wouldn't spend their lives being too personal for your schedule." Ryan felt as if he'd been punched. He remembered his former assistant, Diane, who had protected his time zealously during the company's expansion phase. "I never got those messages," he said quietly. Amanda's expression softened slightly. "Would it have mattered? You made it abundantly clear what your priorities were, Ryan. The day I told you I was pregnant, you called it an inconvenient complication to your 5-year plan." Ryan winced at the memory. He had been ruthless, focused only on Harrison Global's international expansion. "I was wrong," he admitted, surprising himself with his honesty. "I was young, ambitious." "So was I," Amanda interrupted. "But I didn't have the luxury of walking away from responsibility." Ryan glanced at the boys, still fascinated by the tropical fish. Tell me about them, please. For the first time, Amanda's expression warmed. Dylan is the oldest by 3 minutes. He's my little protector. Mason lives in his imagination. He draws constantly. And Ethan notices everything, always asking why. They're wonderful, Ryan said. They are. Despite everything, they're happy children. She hesitated. What do you want, Ryan? Why did you follow us? Before he could answer, the boys rushed back to the table, full of excitement about a pufferfish they'd spotted. Time to go, Amanda said, gathering her worn purse. It's past their bedtime. Tomorrow, Ryan said quickly. Central Park by the carousel, 2 o'clock. Please. Amanda hesitated, then nodded slightly. We'll see. As they prepared to leave, Ethan turned back, his green eyes, so like Ryan's own, fixing on him with uncanny perception. Bye, the boy said softly, raising a small hand in farewell. Goodbye, Ethan, Ryan replied, his voice thick with emotion. I'll see you tomorrow. Back in his penthouse, Ryan paced the spacious living room, unable to settle. The evening's events played on loop in his mind. His children, his sons, had been living in poverty while he accumulated wealth he rarely even enjoyed. He poured himself a drink but set it down untouched. For the first time in years, he needed clarity, not numbness. His phone had been buzzing relentlessly. 12 missed calls from Victor, 3 from James Porter, his childhood friend, and now the company's legal counsel. Ryan ignored them all. Instead, he opened his laptop and typed Amanda Collins into the search bar. There was almost nothing, just a 6-year-old employment record at a design firm and a brief mention in a community college alumni newsletter. She had vanished from the digital world, while his own name yielded thousands of results. Business profiles, financial reports, society pages. Their lives had diverged so completely. Morning brought a flurry of activity. Ryan canceled 3 meetings, ignoring Victor's increasingly irate messages. For the first time in his adult life, Ryan Harrison had put business second. He arrived at Central Park an hour early, nervously pacing around the carousel. He had barely slept, his mind racing with images of 3 identical boys who shared his DNA. When 2 o'clock approached, Ryan scanned every path for Amanda and the boys. What if she didn't come? What if she'd changed her mind? The thought sent a wave of panic through him. Then he saw them, 4 figures approaching from the east path. Amanda looked different in daylight, her brown hair catching golden highlights from the sun. She wore simple jeans and a faded sweater but carried herself with quiet dignity. The boys bounded ahead of her, matching blue jackets making them look like a small coordinated team. You came, Ryan breathed when they reached him. Amanda nodded, a tentative smile touching her lips. I promised we would. The boys stared up at him with varying expressions. Dylan stood slightly in front of the others, his protective instinct on display. Mason clutched a small sketchbook, studying Ryan like he wanted to draw him. Ethan simply tilted his head as if trying to solve a puzzle. Boys, Amanda said gently, this is Mr. Harrison. He's going to spend some time with us today. You can call me Ryan, he offered, crouching down to their level. Mason stepped forward first. Do you like dinosaurs? He asked seriously. Ryan smiled, feeling the first crack in the wall of tension. I love dinosaurs. The afternoon at Central Park had been magical. Ryan had discovered that Dylan loved soccer, Mason could name every dinosaur that ever existed, and Ethan had an uncanny ability to solve puzzles meant for children twice his age. For a few precious hours, Ryan forgot about Harrison Global and the empire he'd built. As the sun began to set, Amanda gently announced it was time to leave. Ryan reluctantly said goodbye, securing a promise to see them again the following weekend. The warm glow of the day stayed with him as his driver took him back to his penthouse. For the first time in years, Ryan felt something dangerously close to happiness. That feeling evaporated the moment he stepped into his living room and found Victor Harrison waiting for him. At 62, Victor remained an imposing figure, tall, silver-haired, with the same green eyes all Harrisons possessed. After Ryan's parents died in a car accident when he was 12, Victor had raised him with a singular focus on business success. "Your assistant tells me you've been canceling meetings," Victor said without preamble. "The Tokyo investors are getting nervous." "I had something important to attend to," Ryan replied, pouring himself a glass of water. "More important than the deal we've spent 9 months negotiating?" Victor's voice was dangerously calm. "What exactly is going on, Ryan?" Ryan hesitated. He had planned to approach this conversation carefully, but Victor's network of informants had clearly alerted him to something unusual. "I found Amanda," he said finally. Victor's expression hardened. "Amanda Collins? Your ex-wife? The one who walked out on you?" "She didn't walk out," Ryan corrected. "I pushed her away, and she has children, 3 boys, my sons." Victor went completely still. "What did you just say?" "Triplets, 5 years old. They're mine, Victor. One look at them and there's no question." "She shows up after 5 years with 3 convenient children who look like Harrisons, just as your net worth crosses the 3 billion mark?" Victor laughed humorlessly. "And you believe this?" "I saw them. They're mine." Victor moved to the bar and poured himself a scotch. "Even if they are, and that's a significant if without proper testing, where has she been for 5 years? Why reveal them now?" "I found her by accident," Ryan explained. "She tried to contact me when she was pregnant. My assistant blocked her calls." "How convenient for her story," Victor said dismissively. "This woman abandoned you, and now she's manipulating you with these supposed children." Ryan felt his temper flare. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Don't I?" Victor set down his glass with deliberate care. "I've seen this before, Ryan. Women targeting wealthy men using children as leverage. Your own mother tried to take your father for millions in their divorce." "This isn't like that," Ryan insisted. "It's exactly like that." Victor's voice softened to the mentoring tone he'd used throughout Ryan's youth. "You've worked too hard to let emotions cloud your judgment now. If these children really are yours, we'll handle it properly. DNA tests, support arrangements, trust funds with appropriate controls." "They're not a business transaction," Ryan said, his voice rising. "Everything in life is a transaction," Victor replied coldly. "I taught you that." Ryan stared at his uncle, suddenly seeing the coldness that had shaped his own worldview. "Maybe that's the problem." Victor's eyes narrowed. "Be very careful, Ryan. Your position at Harrison Global isn't as secure as you might think. The board serves at my pleasure." "Is that a threat?" "It's a reminder of reality," Victor said, moving toward the door. "Get those DNA tests. Use James, he's discreet. And until we know for certain, keep your distance from this situation." After Victor left, Ryan sank onto his sofa, conflict churning inside him. The business side of him, the side Victor had carefully cultivated, knew his uncle's warnings weren't entirely unreasonable. But another part of him, a part long suppressed by ambition, rejected the cold analysis. He had held Mason's small hand, seen Dylan's protective instinct, witnessed Ethan's quiet intelligence. Ryan picked up his phone and called James Porter. "I need your help," he said when his friend answered. "But this stays between us. Victor can't know." The modest apartment building in Queens stood in stark contrast to Ryan's gleaming Manhattan penthouse. He checked the address James had obtained for him one more time before pressing the buzzer for apartment 3B. Amanda's surprised voice came through the intercom. "Ryan? You're early." "I brought breakfast," he replied, holding up a bag of pastries, though she couldn't see him. A moment later, the door buzzed open. Ryan climbed 2 flights of stairs, suddenly nervous. This would be his first time seeing where his sons lived. Amanda opened the door before he could knock. She wore simple jeans and a faded t-shirt, her hair pulled back in a messy bun. Behind her, the sounds of cartoons and children's laughter filtered through. "You didn't have to bring anything," she said, eyeing the bag and the gift-wrapped packages under his arm. I wanted to, Ryan replied. May I come in? Amanda hesitated briefly before stepping aside. The apartment was small but meticulously clean. Mismatched furniture filled the living room, and children's artwork covered the refrigerator. Despite its simplicity, it felt more like a home than Ryan's designer-decorated penthouse ever had. The boys were sprawled on the floor watching TV, but scrambled up when they saw him. Ryan, Mason exclaimed, running over. Did you bring your dinosaur book? Even better, Ryan smiled, setting down his packages. I brought dinosaur models you can build yourself. Mason's eyes widened. Really? After breakfast, Amanda interjected, giving Ryan a look that clearly said, don't spoil them. As they ate pastries around the small kitchen table, Ryan observed the family dynamic. Amanda maintained gentle but firm boundaries with the boys. They, in turn, showed a level of independence and responsibility that surprised him. Ethan, it's your turn to clear the table, Amanda reminded. Without complaint, the quietest triplet began gathering plates. Ryan found himself automatically helping, earning a surprised glance from Amanda. We're going to the museum today, Amanda explained as they finished cleaning up. The Natural History Museum has free admission on Saturdays. I know, Ryan replied. That's why I came early. I thought maybe I could join you. Amanda studied him carefully. The boys would like that. The museum trip was eye-opening for Ryan. Watching his sons explore the dinosaur exhibits with unbridled enthusiasm, he glimpsed what family life could be. Not the sterile, achievement-oriented childhood Victor had crafted for him, but something joyful and genuine. In the Hall of Gems, Ethan tugged on Ryan's sleeve. Why are some rocks shiny and some not? He asked. Ryan knelt down to Ethan's level, explaining mineral formation in simple terms. The boy's intense focus reminded Ryan of himself at that age, before Victor's influence had narrowed his interest to only profitable pursuits. You're good with them, Amanda said quietly, as they watched the boys press their faces against a display case of meteorites. They make it easy, Ryan replied. They're amazing kids, Amanda. You've done an incredible job. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. It hasn't been easy. I want to help, Ryan said. Not just with money, though that too, if you'll let me. I want to be part of their lives. Why? Amanda asked directly. Is it guilt? Curiosity? What happens when the novelty wears off? Before Ryan could answer, Dylan approached, his expression serious. Mom, Mason's crying. They found Mason in the gift shop, staring longingly at an expensive dinosaur encyclopedia. It's okay, buddy, Amanda soothed. We can look for it at the library. Ryan reached for his wallet, but Amanda's warning glance stopped him. He understood her concern. She didn't want the boys to see him as a source of gifts and money. Instead, he knelt beside Mason. You know what? I have that same book at home. Maybe next time you visit, we can look at it together. Mason wiped his eyes. We can visit your house? The question hung in the air. Ryan looked to Amanda, who gave a small nod. Yes, Ryan said, feeling a surge of hope. If your mom agrees, you could come next weekend. With the swimming pool? Ethan asked, appearing beside his brother. Ryan laughed. Yes, with the swimming pool. As they left the museum, Ryan felt Dylan's small hand slip into his. The gesture, so simple yet profound, made his throat tight with emotion. For the first time, Ryan Harrison understood what real wealth looked like. Ryan's penthouse had never felt so alive. The sound of children's laughter echoed through rooms that had known only business calls and solitary silence. This pool is huge, Mason exclaimed, staring wide-eyed at the indoor swimming area. Bigger than our whole apartment, Dylan added, unusually impressed. Amanda stood back, arms crossed and expression guarded as she watched the boys explore. Ryan had hired a swimming instructor, and the triplets were having their first proper swimming lesson. They're natural swimmers, the instructor commented as Ethan performed a perfect flutter kick. Their grandfather was a champion swimmer in college, Ryan said, the words surprising him. He rarely spoke of his father. Amanda raised an eyebrow but said nothing. Later, as the boys devoured pizza on the terrace overlooking Central Park, Ryan and Amanda stood by the kitchen island speaking in low voices. "They're asking questions," Amanda said, "about who you are, why you look like them." Ryan nodded. "I've been thinking about that too." "We need to tell them," she continued. "Soon, before they start creating their own explanations." "Are you sure they're ready?" "Are you?" Amanda countered. Ryan looked out at his sons, their faces animated as they chattered over their meal. The DNA test results James had quietly arranged had merely confirmed what Ryan already knew in his heart. "Yes," he said finally. "When do you think we should do it?" "Today," Amanda replied. "Before we leave. They're comfortable here, having fun. It's a good moment." Ryan felt his heart race, but nodded in agreement. After lunch, they gathered in the living room. The boys sensed something important was happening and settled on the couch without being asked, shoulder to shoulder in matching blue t-shirts. "Boys?" Amanda began gently. "Remember how you've asked about your dad before?" 3 heads nodded in unison. "And you've noticed that Ryan looks a lot like you," she continued. "He has our eyes," Ethan observed. Amanda smiled softly. "Yes, he does." She took a deep breath. "That's because Ryan is your father." The room fell completely silent. Ryan felt as if he might shatter from the tension. Mason spoke first. "Like a real dad? Not just someone who looks like us?" "A real dad," Ryan confirmed, his voice thick with emotion. Dylan's brow furrowed. "But where were you? All the other kids have dads who live with them or visit on weekends." The question hit Ryan like a physical blow. Amanda reached over and squeezed his hand, surprising both of them with the gesture of support. "That's my fault," Ryan admitted. "I didn't know about you boys until I saw you last month outside the restaurant." "Mom didn't tell you?" Ethan asked, his perceptive gaze shifting between the adults. "I tried," Amanda explained carefully. "But sometimes grown-ups make mistakes. I should have tried harder and Ryan should have been easier to reach. The important thing," Ryan added, "is that I know now, and I want very much to be your father, if you'll let me." The triplets exchanged glances, having one of those silent communications that amazed Ryan. Ethan slid off the couch first and approached Ryan. "Can I call you Dad?" he asked simply. Ryan knelt down, meeting his son's eyes. "I would like that more than anything." Ethan wrapped his arms around Ryan's neck and something broke open inside Ryan's chest. A dam of emotion he hadn't known existed suddenly gave way. Mason joined the hug next. "Does this mean we get to come swimming every weekend?" Ryan laughed through the tightness in his throat. "It means I'll be part of your lives in every way I can be." Only Dylan remained on the couch, watching cautiously. Amanda sat beside him. "It's okay to need time, Dylan. This is big news." The boy twisted his hands together. "If you're our dad," he asked Ryan directly, "are you going to take us away from Mom?" "No," Ryan answered immediately. "Your mom is amazing. She's taken care of you all by herself for 5 years. We're going to work together now, but nothing will change how important she is." Dylan studied him for a long moment, before nodding once and sliding off the couch. He didn't hug Ryan, but offered his hand for a solemn handshake. "Okay," Dylan said, "but you have to promise not to leave again." Ryan shook his son's hand, feeling the weight of the moment. "I promise, Dylan. I'm here for good." Ryan sat in his corner office, staring blankly at quarterly projections that would normally command his full attention. The numbers showed record growth for Harrison Global, but his mind was elsewhere, filled with images of 3 little boys with his eyes. A sharp knock interrupted his thoughts before the door swung open without waiting for a response. Victor Harrison strode in, radiating displeasure. "You missed the Singapore call," Victor said, dropping into the chair across from Ryan's desk. "Lynn was asking for you specifically." "Something came up," Ryan replied vaguely. Victor narrowed his eyes. Something more important than the deal we've been chasing for months? Yes. The simple answer clearly caught Victor off guard. Ryan leaned back, suddenly exhausted by the prospect of explaining. But Victor wasn't just his uncle, he was chairman of the board. He deserved to know why the CEO of Harrison Global had suddenly shifted priorities. The DNA results came back, Ryan said. The boys are mine. 100% certainty. Victor's expression darkened. I assumed as much. I've already had legal working on appropriate support arrangements. It's not about support arrangements, Ryan interrupted. I told them I'm their father. I'm going to be part of their lives. Of course you are, Victor said dismissively. In an appropriate capacity, weekend visits, perhaps holidays, we'll set up trust funds for education. I'm picking them up from school today, Ryan cut in. Mason has an art show. I promised I'd be there. Victor went completely still. You're leaving the office early? Today? When we have the Tokyo presentation to finalize? James can handle that. James? Victor scoffed. James Porter is a competent lawyer, but he doesn't have your vision for expansion. Ryan's phone buzzed with a message from Amanda. Boys are excited about you coming to Mason's art show. He's been talking about it all week. A smile touched Ryan's lips, and something in his expression made Victor lean forward. This woman has you completely distracted, Victor said, his voice dangerously quiet. She waited 5 years to tell you about these children, and now suddenly you're rearranging your entire life for her? For them, Ryan corrected. My sons. You barely know them. I'm getting to know them, Ryan countered. And they're extraordinary kids. Victor stood abruptly. You're the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar corporation, not just some father picking up kids from school. You have responsibilities. Yes, I do, Ryan agreed, standing to match his uncle's stance. To my children as well as to this company. The two men stared at each other, a tension between them that had never existed before. Finally, Victor adjusted his perfectly tailored suit. Fine. Do what you need to do. But when the board questions why our Tokyo expansion is faltering, I won't shield you from the consequences. After Victor left, Ryan sank back into his chair, conflict churning inside him. His uncle's warnings weren't entirely unreasonable. The business side of Ryan, the side that had built an empire on calculated risk and strategic thinking, knew he should proceed cautiously. But another part of him, a part long suppressed by ambition, rejected the cold analysis. He had promised Mason he would be there, and he intended to keep that promise. Ryan arrived at the elementary school 30 minutes early, parking his sleek Aston Martin among minivans and sensible sedans. He felt oddly out of place in his tailored suit as he approached the school's entrance. The art show was held in the gymnasium, children's artwork displayed on colorful boards throughout the space. Ryan scanned the room nervously until he spotted Amanda chatting with a teacher. When she saw him, surprise flickered across her face. You made it, she said, checking her watch. Early, even. I promised, Ryan replied simply. Where's Mason's work? Amanda led him to a display where Mason stood proudly beside a vibrant painting of 5 figures holding hands, 3 small ones and 2 larger ones, all with bright green eyes. Dad, Mason exclaimed, seeing Ryan. You came! Look at my family painting. The word Dad still hit Ryan with the force of a physical blow. He knelt down to Mason's level, studying the artwork with genuine admiration. It's wonderful, he said, noting that Mason had painted Amanda and himself together with the triplets. Best painting here, I'd say. Mason beamed. Ms. Johnson said I'm very talented for my age. Ryan laughed. She's absolutely right. As he stood up, Ryan felt a small hand slip into his. Looking down, he was surprised to see it was Dylan, the most cautious of his sons, who had taken his hand. Will you come see my science project next? Dylan asked. It's about rockets. I wouldn't miss it for anything, Ryan promised, and meant it more than any business deal he'd ever closed. Mr. Harrison, the board is waiting in the conference room, Ryan's assistant said through the intercom. Mr. Victor says they can't delay any longer. Ryan glanced at his watch and then at his phone, which displayed a text from Amanda. Ethan's fever is worse. Taking him to urgent care now. The Tokyo expansion meeting, the one he'd helped plan for months, was starting in 5 minutes. Meanwhile, his son was sick, and Ryan had promised Amanda he would meet them at the clinic. Tell them I won't be attending, he told his shocked assistant. Family emergency. 20 minutes later, Ryan rushed through the doors of the urgent care clinic. Amanda looked up from the waiting room chair, surprise evident on her face. You came, she said. Of course I came. Ryan sat beside her, immediately scanning the room. Where are Dylan and Mason? My neighbor is watching them. Amanda twisted her hands anxiously. Ethan's temperature hit 103. The school nurse called me to pick him up. Ryan nodded, noticing the dark circles under Amanda's eyes. When was the last time you ate? She shrugged. I don't remember. Let me get you some coffee at least, Ryan offered, squeezing her hand gently before heading to the vending machine. As the hours passed, Ryan witnessed a side of parenting he hadn't yet experienced. The worry, the helplessness, the fierce protective instinct that surged through him when the doctor finally called Ethan's name. The normally curious and talkative boy looked small and pale on the examination table. When the doctor mentioned a blood test, Ethan's eyes widened with fear. I don't want a needle, he whispered. Without thinking, Ryan sat on the table and gathered Ethan into his lap. Hey, buddy, look at me, he said gently. Did I ever tell you about the time I had to get 7 shots in one day before a business trip to Africa? As Ryan spun an embellished tale about exotic animals and brave explorers, the nurse quietly took Ethan's blood. The boy was so engrossed in the story, he barely flinched. Amanda watched them with an unreadable expression. Later, when the diagnosis of strep throat was confirmed and medication prescribed, Ryan carried a sleeping Ethan to his car. I'll drive you home, he said to Amanda, who was too exhausted to argue. At their apartment, Ryan carefully tucked Ethan into bed and then helped Amanda get dinner for the other boys. It felt surprisingly natural, this domestic routine so different from his boardroom battles. Thank you, Amanda said quietly as they washed dishes side by side. For today, for everything. I'm their father, Ryan replied simply. It's where I should be. His phone buzzed incessantly in his pocket, probably Victor or James wondering where he was. But Ryan ignored it. The next morning, Ryan arrived at his office to find Victor waiting for him, fury etched into every line of his face. You walked out on the most important board meeting of the quarter, Victor said without preamble. The Tokyo investors are reconsidering. My son was sick, Ryan replied calmly, setting down his briefcase. He needed me. Your son has a mother, Victor snapped. A mother who managed perfectly well for 5 years without you. Ryan felt his temper flare. Ethan was scared. He needed his father. Victor's laugh was cold and humorless. Listen to yourself. A month ago, you didn't even know these children existed. Now you're throwing away everything we've built because one of them had a sore throat? Strep throat, Ryan corrected. And I'm not throwing anything away. I'm balancing my responsibilities. There is no balance, Victor said, his voice sharp. Not at this level. You're either committed to this company or you're not. Ryan studied his uncle, the man who raised him, who shaped him into the ruthless businessman he'd become. For the first time, he wondered if Victor had ever felt genuine love for anything beyond the Harrison Global logo. I'm committed to both my family and this company, Ryan said firmly. Victor's expression hardened. Then I'll make this simple for you. The board meeting has been rescheduled for tomorrow morning. The Japanese delegation will be there. If you miss it, I'll call for a vote of no confidence in your leadership. Ryan felt the blood drain from his face. You'd force me out? After everything I've done to build this company? I built this company, Victor corrected coldly. You've been a caretaker. A good one until now. But you're not irreplaceable, Ryan. Victor moved toward the door, then paused. Choose, Ryan, the company or them. You can't have both. After his uncle left, Ryan sat at his desk, staring at the family photo Mason had drawn, which he'd framed and placed beside his computer. His phone rang. Amanda. Ethan's fever broke, she said, her voice warm with relief. He's asking for you. Ryan closed his eyes, suddenly knowing exactly what he needed to do. The morning of the rescheduled Tokyo meeting, Ryan arrived at Harrison Global an hour early. The building was quiet, most employees not yet at their desks. He needed this time to prepare, not just for the presentation, but for what would come after. As he passed James Porter's office, he noticed the light was on. Through the glass door, Ryan could see his childhood friend and legal counsel hunched over his desk, papers spread before him. Ryan knocked lightly before entering. You're here early. James startled, quickly gathering the documents. Just preparing for the meeting. Victor wants everything perfect. Something about James's nervous manner triggered Ryan's suspicion. What are those papers? Just legal briefs for the Tokyo deal, James replied too quickly. Ryan stepped forward, catching sight of a familiar name on one of the documents before James could hide it. Is that Amanda's name? What are you doing with papers about Amanda? James's face flushed. Ryan, it's not what you think. Show me, Ryan demanded, his voice deadly quiet. After a moment's hesitation, James reluctantly slid the papers across the desk. Ryan scanned them, his blood running cold. They were drafts of emergency custody petitions, financial investigations into Amanda's background, and a strategy for proving parental alienation. Victor asked me to prepare these, James explained, not meeting Ryan's eyes. Just as contingency planning. Contingency for what? Ryan asked, though he already knew the answer. In case you decided the children should have different living arrangements. Ryan felt physically ill. You've been spying on us, reporting to Victor. James had the decency to look ashamed. He's chairman of the board, Ryan. When he asks for information, I can't exactly refuse. We've been friends since we were 10 years old, Ryan said, disbelief coloring his voice. I trusted you with my family. I told myself I was protecting the company, James replied weakly. Victor convinced me Amanda was manipulating you, that these children were a threat to everything we've built. Ryan shook his head in disgust. They're children, James. My children. James's phone buzzed with a text. He glanced at it, then back at Ryan with growing alarm. Victor's on his way up. The Japanese delegation arrived early. Ryan gathered the documents about Amanda and the boys. I'll deal with you later. As he turned to leave, James called after him. Ryan, there's something else you should know. I've been meeting with Amanda. Ryan froze. What? Victor suggested I should get close to her, gain her trust, see what her real motivations were. James looked genuinely remorseful now. I've been telling her I could help with legal matters, offering advice about her situation. The betrayal cut deep. Does she know you're reporting everything back to Victor? Of course not, James said quietly. She thinks I'm her friend. Ryan's phone buzzed with a text from Amanda. James offered to watch the boys Saturday so I could pick up an extra shift. Is that okay with you? Anger surged through Ryan like a physical force. Stay away from my family, he warned James. Or legal counsel or not, you'll regret it. In the hallway, Ryan nearly collided with Victor, who was flanked by 4 Japanese businessmen in immaculate suits. Ryan, Victor greeted him with a thin smile. Perfect timing. Our guests arrived earlier than expected. Ryan composed himself, slipping the documents about Amanda into his briefcase. Mr. Tanaka, it's good to see you again, he said, bowing slightly to the eldest visitor. I hope everything is prepared for the presentation, Victor asked pointedly. Ryan met his uncle's gaze steadily. Actually, there's been a change of plans. For the next hour, Ryan guided the Japanese delegation through Harrison Global's Tokyo expansion strategy. His presentation was flawless, addressing every concern, anticipating every question. Victor watched with growing confusion as Ryan masterfully closed the deal they'd been pursuing for months. When the contracts were signed and the visitors escorted to a celebratory lunch with other executives, Victor cornered Ryan in the conference room. "What game are you playing?" he demanded. "Yesterday you were ready to throw away this deal for those children, and today you're the consummate CEO." Ryan straightened his tie calmly. "I realized something important, Uncle. I don't have to choose between my family and this company." "Of course you do," Victor scoffed. "You can't serve two masters." "No," Ryan agreed. "That's why I'm calling an emergency board meeting this afternoon." Victor's eyes narrowed. "On what grounds?" "To discuss a change in leadership," Ryan said simply. For the first time in Ryan's memory, Victor Harrison looked genuinely shocked. The Harrison Global boardroom had never felt so tense. 12 board members sat around the polished mahogany table, eyes darting between Ryan and Victor as if watching a high-stakes tennis match. "This emergency meeting has been called by CEO Ryan Harrison," the corporate secretary announced formally. "Mr. Harrison, you have the floor." Ryan stood, buttoning his suit jacket. "Thank you all for coming on such short notice. I've called this meeting to discuss the future leadership of Harrison Global." Victor's face remained impassive, though his knuckles whitened as he gripped his pen. "As you know," Ryan continued, "I've recently discovered I have 3 sons. This has naturally led to changes in my personal life. My uncle believes these changes make me unsuitable to lead this company." A murmur rippled through the room. "What my nephew fails to mention," Victor interjected smoothly, "is that these sons appeared conveniently after our stock price tripled last quarter." "DNA tests confirm they are mine," Ryan replied calmly. "But that's not why we're here. We're here because Harrison Global needs to decide what kind of company it will be going forward." Ryan distributed folders to each board member. "These contain 2 proposals. The first is my plan for restructuring senior leadership to allow me to balance my family and professional responsibilities without compromising either." "And the second?" asked Abigail Chen, the longest-serving board member after Victor. "My resignation as CEO effective immediately," Ryan said quietly. The room erupted in surprised exclamations. Victor looked triumphant. "The choice is simple," Ryan continued when order was restored. "Either Harrison Global evolves into a company that values work-life balance at all levels, starting from the top, or I step down to focus on what matters most to me now." "This is emotional blackmail," Victor snapped. Ryan turned to his uncle. "No, Victor, this is clarity, something I've recently discovered after living in the fog of your expectations for 20 years. He addressed the board again. "I've given everything to this company. My youth, my marriage, years I can never get back. I won't sacrifice my children, too." Victor stood abruptly. "This is precisely my point. His priorities have shifted. Harrison Global needs a CEO who puts the company first. Always." "Like you did?" Ryan challenged. "Tell them, Victor. Tell them how you've used company resources to investigate my ex-wife, how you enlisted our legal counsel to spy on my family and create false evidence for a custody battle I never wanted." The board members looked shocked. Victor's face flushed with anger. "I was protecting this company from a gold digger and her—" "Careful," Ryan interrupted, his voice dangerously low. "Those are my children you're talking about." Abigail Chen cleared her throat. "I think we need to separate several issues here. The personal situation between Mr. Harrison and his uncle is distasteful, but secondary to the governance question." She studied Ryan carefully. "Your first proposal, the restructuring, you believe you can effectively lead this company while being present for your family?" "I do," Ryan answered confidently. "I've outlined a plan to promote 3 senior VPs to share operational responsibilities, while I focus on strategic direction and major client relationships. It's a modern approach many successful companies have adopted." "And if we don't accept this proposal?" another board member asked. "Then I walk away," Ryan said simply. I've made my fortune. I've built this company from a regional player to a global force, but I won't miss another moment of my son's childhoods for any amount of money or power. Victor scoffed. Such nobility. Where was this family devotion when you drove Amanda away 6 years ago? I was wrong then, Ryan admitted. I was the man you raised me to be, putting profit above people, success above relationships, but I've changed. People don't change, Victor insisted. They do when they discover what truly matters, Ryan countered. He turned back to the board. I respect each of you, and I respect this company enough to give you a choice. But I've already made mine. With that, Ryan gathered his papers and walked out, leaving stunned silence behind him. Outside the building, Ryan loosened his tie and took a deep breath of the crisp autumn air. For the first time in his adult life, he felt truly free. Whatever the board decided, he knew his path forward. His phone rang. Amanda. How did it go? She asked, concern evident in her voice. Ryan had told her about James's betrayal and his confrontation with Victor. I don't know yet, he replied honestly. But it doesn't matter. I'm picking up the boys from school, then coming over. We need to talk. Is everything okay? Ryan smiled, watching the setting sun paint the skyscrapers gold. Everything is finally exactly as it should be. Dad, watch this, Mason called, executing a wobbly cartwheel across the grass in Central Park. Ryan applauded enthusiastically from his seat on a park bench. That was at least 50% better than last week, Ryan encouraged, making Mason beam with pride. It had been 3 weeks since the board meeting, and Ryan's life had transformed completely. The board had ultimately accepted his restructuring proposal, with a few modifications and a 6-month trial period. Abigail Chen had been instrumental, persuading the more conservative members that evolving their leadership model would position Harrison Global as a progressive, family-friendly company. Victor had been furious. He remained chairman, but his influence had diminished considerably after the revelation of his tactics against Amanda and the children. How's the new schedule working out? Amanda asked, sitting beside Ryan as they watched the boys play. Better than I expected, Ryan admitted. 3 days in the office, 2 working remotely. The Tokyo deal is finalized and client feedback has been positive about the leadership changes. Amanda studied him. You seem different, more relaxed. Ryan smiled. Turns out I don't actually have to control everything personally for the company to function. Who would have thought? Amanda teased, nudging his shoulder lightly. This new camaraderie between them still felt fragile but precious. Ryan treasured these moments of easy conversation, so different from their bitter parting 6 years ago. I've been looking at apartments, Ryan said, in this neighborhood, something bigger than my penthouse, with a yard if possible. Amanda raised an eyebrow. Giving up Manhattan? That's a big step. The penthouse never felt like home, Ryan confessed. It was just a place to sleep between meetings. I want somewhere the boys will feel comfortable, with rooms of their own when they stay over. They'd like that, Amanda said softly. They talk about you constantly now. Ryan watched as Ethan helped Dylan adjust his stance for pitching a baseball. They're amazing kids, Amanda. You did that. You raised them to be kind, smart, resilient. We did get one thing right, she agreed. A comfortable silence fell between them as they observed their sons at play. Ryan marveled at how quickly children adapted. Just over a month ago, he'd been a stranger to them. Now they incorporated him into their lives as if he'd always been there. The school called yesterday, Amanda said, changing the subject. They want to move Ethan to the gifted program. That's wonderful, Ryan replied, though I'm not surprised. The questions he asks about how things work, he reminds me of myself at that age. They all do, Amanda observed. Dylan has your determination. Mason, your creativity. Ryan laughed. And all of them have my stubbornness, unfortunately. Their conversation was interrupted by James Porter approaching hesitantly across the grass. Ryan tensed immediately. What are you doing here? He demanded. James held up his hands in a placating gesture. I just need 5 minutes, Ryan. please." Amanda looked between them, confusion evident. "What's going on?" "It's okay," Ryan assured her. "Why don't you gather the boys? I'll meet you at the ice cream cart in a few minutes." After Amanda walked away, Ryan turned to James with cold fury. "I told you to stay away from my family." "I know," James said, looking genuinely remorseful. "I came to apologize and to give you this." He handed Ryan a thick envelope. "What is it?" "My resignation from Harrison Global," James replied, "and copies of everything Victor asked me to do regarding Amanda and the boys. If he tries anything else, you'll have ammunition." Ryan studied his former friend. "Why the change of heart?" James looked toward the boys in the distance. "I've been Victor's puppet for years, telling myself it was for my career. Watching you choose your family over everything, it made me realize how empty my own life has become." Ryan didn't immediately respond, conflicted about the man who had been both friend and betrayer. "I don't expect forgiveness," James continued, "but I wanted you to know I'm not a threat anymore." He turned to leave. "James," Ryan called after him, "we were friends once. I hope you find whatever it is you're looking for." As James walked away, Ryan felt a weight lift from his shoulders. He joined Amanda and the boys at the ice cream cart, smiling as Mason debated the merits of chocolate versus strawberry with the seriousness of a Supreme Court justice. "Everything okay?" Amanda asked quietly. Ryan watched his sons, these miracles he'd nearly missed knowing. "Everything is perfect," he answered, and meant it. Ryan's new brownstone in Park Slope had transformed from an empty shell to a home in just 2 months. The walls, once stark white, now displayed framed artwork from the boys and family photos. The formal dining room had become a hybrid space with a large table for meals and 3 small desks for homework. "Dad, where does this dinosaur go?" Ethan asked, holding up a model T-Rex they'd built together. "That's for your bedroom shelf," Ryan replied, helping him carefully carry it upstairs. The boys were spending their first weekend in the new house, each with their own bedroom that they'd helped decorate. Mason's walls were covered in space-themed decals, Dylan's in sports posters, and Ethan's in bookshelves already filling with science books. Amanda had been surprisingly helpful with the move, offering advice on child-friendly furniture and practical storage solutions. There was an unspoken understanding between them that this wasn't just Ryan's home, but an extension of the family they were carefully rebuilding. Ryan was arranging books in the living room when the doorbell rang. Expecting the pizza delivery he'd ordered, he was shocked to find Victor Harrison on his doorstep. "Uncle Victor," Ryan said, unable to hide his surprise. They hadn't spoken outside of formal board meetings since the confrontation 2 months earlier. "May I come in?" Victor asked stiffly. Ryan hesitated, then stepped aside. "The boys are upstairs," he warned quietly. Victor nodded, following Ryan into the living room. The older man looked out of place among the colorful throw pillows and children's games. "So this is where the CEO of Harrison Global lives now," Victor observed, running a finger along a bookshelf. "Quite a change from your penthouse." "It suits me better," Ryan replied simply. "Why are you here, Victor?" Before his uncle could answer, thundering footsteps announced the arrival of the triplets, racing down the stairs. "Dad, is the pizza—" Dylan stopped abruptly upon seeing the stranger. Mason and Ethan nearly collided with him. "Boys," Ryan said, "this is my uncle, Victor Harrison." 3 pairs of green eyes, identical to Victor's own, stared at him with undisguised curiosity. "You're our dad's uncle?" Mason asked. "So you're our great-uncle?" A flicker of emotion crossed Victor's usually stoic face. "Yes, I suppose I am." "Are you old?" Ethan inquired bluntly. "Ethan," Ryan admonished gently, "that's not polite." "I'm 63, Victor answered, surprising Ryan with his patience. "Old enough to remember when your father was your age." This revelation captivated the boys. "What was Dad like when he was little?" Dylan asked, momentarily forgetting his usual caution around strangers. Victor's expression softened slightly. "He was very much like you 3, Curious, determined, always asking questions. Did he like dinosaurs? Mason pressed. Rockets, Victor corrected. He built model rockets. We used to launch them in Central Park on Sunday mornings. Ryan stared at his uncle in disbelief. He hadn't thought about those Sunday mornings in decades. Before the accident that killed his parents, before Victor transformed from fun uncle to stern guardian. The doorbell rang again, this time actually the pizza delivery. Ryan excused himself to answer it, leaving Victor with the boys. When he returned with the pizza boxes, he found Victor seated on the couch with Ethan showing him a complex Lego structure. Uncle Victor was telling us about Grandpa, Dylan explained. They were brothers like us, except there were only two of them. Your father has a twin brother too, Victor said. James, who works at the company. Ryan tensed. James isn't with the company anymore, Uncle. Victor nodded. I know. That's partly why I'm here. He turned to the boys. Would you mind if I spoke with your father privately for a few minutes? The triplets looked to Ryan for guidance. He nodded reassuringly. Go wash your hands for pizza. I'll call you when we're done. After they raced upstairs, Victor sighed heavily. They're remarkable children, Ryan. Yes, they are, Ryan agreed cautiously. They look so much like you and your father, Victor continued. Seeing them, it brought back memories I thought I'd buried years ago. Ryan waited, unsure where this conversation was heading. I've been thinking about what you said at the board meeting, Victor admitted. About how I raised you to put profit above people. You were right. The admission stunned Ryan. Victor Harrison never admitted being wrong about anything. After your parents died, I was terrified of failing them, of failing you, Victor continued. I thought if I could make you successful, wealthy, powerful, I'd have done my duty. I never considered whether I was making you happy. You did the best you could, Ryan said quietly. Victor shook his head. No, I didn't. I turned you into a reflection of myself. And I nearly cost you the chance to be a better father than I was. For the first time in Ryan's memory, Victor Harrison looked vulnerable. I'd like to know them, Victor said finally. My great-nephews, if you'll allow it. The backyard of Ryan's brownstone was transformed into a wonderland of streamers, balloons, and 3 identical 6 signs. The triplets' birthday party was in full swing, with children running and shouting in the afternoon sun while parents chatted nearby. Ryan stood at the grill, expertly flipping burgers while keeping one eye on his sons. Careful, Mason, he called as his most adventurous boy climbed higher on the playset. Mason gave him a thumbs up without slowing his ascent. Amanda appeared beside Ryan carrying a tray of condiments. 6 months had passed since their initial reunion outside Le Ciel restaurant, and the change in her was remarkable. Her hair shone with health, her clothes were new and stylish, and most noticeably, she smiled easily now. He'll be fine, she assured Ryan. They all have your stubbornness. And your resilience, Ryan added with a smile. The past months had brought changes no one could have predicted. Ryan had settled into his restructured role at Harrison Global, proving that a CEO could indeed balance work and family. Amanda had started a promising career at a design firm, her talents finally recognized and valued. And most surprisingly, Victor had become a devoted great-uncle, showing up regularly with educational gifts and taking a special interest in Dylan's budding interest in business. Where is Uncle Victor? Ethan asked, appearing at Ryan's side. He promised to show me how his watch works. He'll be here soon, Ryan assured him, checking his own watch. Victor was never late, another family trait. As if on cue, the garden gate opened, and Victor entered carrying 3 identically wrapped packages. The formerly intimidating chairman had softened visibly in recent months, though he still wore his tailored suits even to a children's birthday party. Uncle Victor, the boys called in unison, racing toward him. Ryan watched as his uncle carefully set down the gifts to accept 3 enthusiastic hugs. The transformation in Victor still amazed him. The man who had once viewed children as inconvenient distractions now patiently answered endless questions from 3 curious 6-year-olds. "I didn't think he'd come," Amanda said quietly beside Ryan. "Neither did I," Ryan admitted. "But they've been good for him. Maybe he needed this as much as I did." As the party continued, Ryan found himself watching Amanda. She was flourishing in her new job, regaining the confidence that had drawn him to her years ago. Their relationship had evolved too. Not romantic, but a deep partnership built on mutual respect and shared love for their sons. "Remember their first birthday?" Amanda asked as they watched the boys gather around the cake with its 6 candles. "I could barely afford cupcakes from the grocery store." Ryan felt the familiar pang of regret for all the moments he'd missed. "I wish I had been there." Amanda surprised him by squeezing his hand gently. "You're here now. That's what matters." After cake and presents, the party began to wind down. Parents collected their children, thanking Ryan and Amanda for the wonderful celebration. Soon, only family remained: Ryan, Amanda, the boys, and Victor. "Before everyone leaves," Victor announced, "I have something for the boys." He retrieved an envelope from his jacket pocket. "This isn't just a birthday gift. Consider it an apology for my initial reluctance to welcome you into the family." Ryan took the envelope cautiously and opened it. Inside were legal documents establishing 3 substantial trust funds for the boys' education, along with shares in Harrison Global transferred into their names. "Uncle Victor, this is too much," Ryan began. "It's exactly right," Victor interrupted firmly. "They're Harrisons. They deserve their birthright." He knelt down to the boys' level, something the old Victor would never have done. "These are for your future, boys, for college and beyond." "Thank you, Uncle Victor," the triplets chorused, though the concept of trust funds was well beyond their comprehension. As Victor prepared to leave, he pulled Ryan aside. "There's something else. The board has been discussing succession planning." Ryan tensed. Despite their reconciliation, business conversations with Victor still triggered wariness. "I'm planning to step down as chairman next year," Victor continued, surprising Ryan. "I'll be recommending you take my place." "Victor, I don't know what to say." "Say you'll consider it," his uncle replied. "The restructuring has worked better than anyone expected. You've proven it's possible to be both a good businessman and a good father." He glanced at the boys who were examining their new toys. Those boys deserve to see their father lead the company their grandfather helped build. After Victor left, Ryan joined Amanda on the porch swing, watching the triplets play in the fading evening light. "Happy?" she asked simply. Ryan nodded, genuinely content in a way he hadn't known was possible a year ago. "Very. You?" "Getting there," Amanda replied with a soft smile. As they sat together in comfortable silence, Ryan realized that for all his wealth and business success, this moment, this family, was his greatest achievement. And that concludes my presentation on Harrison Global's new sustainability initiative, Ryan finished, closing his tablet as the board members applauded politely. 1 year had passed since he'd stood in this same boardroom and offered his resignation. Now, as both CEO and newly appointed chairman, Ryan had successfully guided the company through its most profitable year to date while maintaining his commitment to his family. "Excellent work, Ryan," Victor commented from his new position as chairman emeritus. Though officially semi-retired, he still attended major meetings, offering guidance when asked, but no longer controlling every decision. As the board members filed out, Abigail Chen lingered behind. "You've proven a lot of skeptics wrong," she said with a smile, "including me. I wasn't sure your work-life balance experiment would succeed." Ryan laughed. "Neither was I, to be honest. But it turns out that being present for soccer games actually makes me a better CEO, not a worse one." "Perspective," Abigail nodded. "Something many executives lack." After the meeting, Ryan declined his driver's offer, opting to walk the few blocks to his destination. It was a perfect autumn day, the trees in Central Park beginning to turn golden. The same season he'd discovered his sons a year ago. He arrived at Amanda's design firm just as she was exiting the building. "Right on time," she smiled, falling into step beside him. "How was the board meeting?" "Productive. The sustainability initiative passed unanimously." "I'm not surprised. Your presentation to the boys at breakfast was very convincing." Ryan chuckled. "If you can explain environmental impact to 3 6-year-olds, you can convince anyone." They walked in comfortable silence for a few blocks. Their relationship had evolved into something neither of them had anticipated. Not quite the romance of their youth, but a deep friendship built on shared history and mutual respect. "Are you nervous about tomorrow?" Amanda asked as they approached the school. "Terrified," Ryan admitted. "What if they hate me?" "They won't hate you," Amanda assured him. "Career Day is mostly about bringing snacks and showing off cool job gadgets." "I should have brought prototypes from the R&D department," Ryan fretted. Amanda laughed. "Trust me, your holographic presentation will impress a bunch of first graders more than actual investment banking ever could." They arrived at the school just as the final bell rang. Moments later, the triplets burst through the doors, spotting their parents immediately. "Dad," Ethan called, running ahead of his brothers. "Did you bring it?" Ryan patted his briefcase. "Right here, all ready for tomorrow." "Ms. Thompson says I can help introduce you," Dylan announced proudly. "And I made signs," Mason added, pulling crumpled papers from his backpack to reveal colorful "Welcome CEO Dad" posters. As they walked home together, Ryan and Amanda flanking the boys who chattered excitedly about their day, Ryan reflected on how ordinary and yet extraordinary this moment was. A year ago, he couldn't have imagined this life. That evening, after dinner at Amanda's apartment, a new spacious place in a good neighborhood, purchased with her own salary, Ryan helped with homework while Amanda prepared for an upcoming presentation. "Dad?" Mason asked as Ryan checked his math problems. "Are you and Mom going to get married again?" Ryan nearly dropped his pen, shooting a panicked glance toward the kitchen where Amanda was working. Thankfully, she hadn't heard. "Why do you ask that, buddy?" Ryan managed. "Tommy's parents were divorced, but now they live together again," Mason explained matter-of-factly. "And you and Mom are always together anyway." "It's more complicated than that," Ryan began carefully. "Why?" Ethan joined in, ever curious. "You like Mom. She likes you. We all like being together." Ryan smiled at their simple logic. "Sometimes grown-up relationships take time to figure out," he explained. "Your mom and I care about each other very much, and we both love you boys more than anything. Right now, we're focused on being the best parents we can be." "But you could think about it," Dylan suggested with surprising perception. "For later." "I could do that," Ryan agreed softly, a strange warmth spreading through his chest at the thought. Later, as he prepared to leave, Amanda walked him to the door. "The boys asleep?" he asked. "Finally. They're too excited about Career Day to settle down." "Thank you," Ryan said suddenly. Amanda looked puzzled. "For what?" "For letting me be part of their lives. For giving me a second chance when I didn't deserve one." Amanda's expression softened. "You earned that second chance, Ryan. You chose them when it mattered most." As he walked to his car, Ryan realized that for all the wealth and power he'd accumulated, his greatest achievement would always be the family he'd nearly lost, but had been fortunate enough to find again. Ryan Harrison sat alone at a table for two in Le Ciel, the exclusive Manhattan restaurant where everything had begun 18 months ago. The same panoramic windows showcased the glittering city below. The same crystal glasses reflected the amber glow of expensive scotch. But Ryan was not the same man. He checked his watch, a simple timepiece that had replaced his ostentatious luxury brand. Amanda was running late, which was unusual for her. Tonight was important. They had agreed to have a rare, adults-only dinner to discuss the boys' upcoming school applications. Ryan smiled, remembering that fateful night when he'd spotted Amanda and the boys from this very restaurant. How differently he saw the world now, through the eyes of a father, not just a CEO. His phone buzzed with a text from Victor, The boys are fine. Ethan is teaching me chess and he's alarmingly good at it. Mason painted my portrait, quite abstract I must say, and Dylan is organizing my tie collection by color. Take your time. Another change Ryan could never have anticipated. Victor Harrison, once the embodiment of cold ambition, was now the triplets' favorite babysitter. Sorry I'm late, Amanda said, slightly breathless as she slipped into the chair across from him. She looked stunning in a simple black dress, her hair swept up elegantly. Worth waiting for, Ryan replied with a smile. Victor says the boys are turning his penthouse upside down. He secretly loves it, Amanda laughed. Who would have thought the great Victor Harrison would end up building pillow forts? They ordered dinner, falling into easy conversation about work, the boys, and plans for the summer. There was a comfort between them now, a shared history that went beyond their brief marriage and long separation. I've been thinking, Ryan said as their desserts arrived, about what Mason asked a few months ago. Amanda raised an eyebrow. Which question? That child asks about 50 per day. Whether we were going to get married again, Ryan clarified, watching her expression carefully. Amanda set down her fork, suddenly serious. Ryan? I'm not proposing, he assured her quickly. At least not tonight. She looked relieved, but not entirely, Ryan noted with interest. But I have been thinking about us, he continued. About how far we've come. About how much I still care for you. I care for you too, Amanda admitted quietly. But we're in a good place now. Co-parenting, friendship, it works. It does, Ryan agreed. But is works enough? When I think about my life before the boys, before finding you again, I had everything and nothing at the same time. We're different people now, Amanda pointed out. I'm not the young wife you dismissed for having inconvenient timing, and you're not the man who chose ambition over family. Exactly, Ryan said, leaning forward. We've both grown. Maybe we needed that time apart to become who we needed to be, for ourselves and for each other. Amanda studied him thoughtfully. What are you saying, Ryan? I'm saying I'd like us to consider the possibility of more. Not rushing, not for the boys' sake, but for our own. Because when I imagine my future now, Amanda, you're in it. Not just as the mother of my children, but as my partner. Amanda was quiet for a long moment, her eyes reflecting the city lights below. I've thought about it too, she finally confessed. But I've been afraid. Afraid of risking what we've built. Afraid of being hurt again. I understand that fear, Ryan said softly. But I'm not the man who hurt you before. And you're not the woman who was hurt. We've become stronger, wiser versions of ourselves. Amanda reached across the table to take his hand. I'm willing to consider the possibility, she said with a small smile. Slowly. Slowly works for me, Ryan replied, squeezing her hand gently. As they left the restaurant, Ryan paused at the exact spot where he'd stood 18 months earlier, looking down at the street where he'd first glimpsed his sons. What is it? Amanda asked, following his gaze. I was just thinking about how one moment can change everything, Ryan said. If I hadn't looked out that window that night. You would have found us eventually, Amanda said with certainty. Some things are just meant to be. Ryan took her hand as they walked toward his waiting car. In his pocket was a small velvet box. Not for tonight, but perhaps soon. He had learned that the most precious things in life couldn't be rushed. Once Ryan Harrison had believed his fortune was measured in billions. Now he knew better. His true wealth was walking beside him and waiting at home in the form of 3 boys with his eyes and their mother's heart.